Welcome back to the Scarfey Spurs Talk Podcast. In this episode, we'll be reviewing that draw in Matchday 2 in the Champions League against Bodø Glimt away in Norway in the Arctic Circle. We'll also be previewing Leeds United in the Premier League at Ellen Road. That should be a tasty game. So to join me tonight, because you know who I am, I'm Harry Scarfe. I've got three fabulous guests, so let's introduce them one by one. We'll start with Ian from the Spurs Diehards YouTube channel. Ian, how are you doing firstly?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Let's hopefully have a good chat tonight about that performance on Tuesday night.
Lovely stuff. Thank you so much. You'd like to tell people where you're joining from? Ian?
Sorry, I missed. Sorry, are you talking to me?
Yes, right. Let people know where you're joining from.
Where am I from?
They're joining from today.
There's something wrong. I'm not. You're not coming across clearly.
That's all right. Don't worry. I'll move on
Go
for now.
To someone
Connor.
else.
That's all right, Connor. Thank you.
On it at all.
That's all right, Connor. Appreciate you coming on. How are you doing, firstly, and let us know where you're joining from tonight.
Yeah, not too bad. I'm joining from somewhere in Essex.
Lovely stuff. Thank you so much, Ian. God, you got it now.
I'm in Glasgow. I'll pick that up in a second.
Lovely. That's why I asked you. I knew it was outside of England.
Just outside Glasgow.
I didn't want to say for you because I didn't want to get it wrong. So thank you, Ian.
No, that's cool.
That's good. You're better to stay if you don't understand me. You may talk waffle half the time.
I am, yeah.
Thank you very much. And Jack, thanks for coming on the podcast. Firstly, most importantly, how are you doing? And secondly, let people know where you're joining from too.
I'm doing all right. Just doing a bit of work and some house sitting, so it's a nice Spurs break during lunchtime. I'm joining from Seattle in the US.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, Jack. And if anyone's listening on a podcast platform, so it's via audio, please do drop a follow and a 5-star review. If you're listening on YouTube, please do like and subscribe. Both platforms, let us know. Get involved where you're listening from, your thoughts on Tottenham, how you're feeling as a Spurs fan right now. But before we get into it, a few shout outs for partners, because I'm proud to have 4 partners on the board now. That's a big increase. 24 hours ago, it was just 2. So thank you for everyone for continued support. So firstly, the Kitman, who are great. Check out the Kitman for your genuine classic past season football shirts, shorts and scarves. You can relieve former players and memorabilia goals with some retro memorabilia from the Kitman. You can use the coupon Scarfey15, it's capital S, for a 15% discount on literally everything as well. And that includes delivery. Get another discount on that delivery. Second is Everything Spurs Discord. It's one of the biggest online Tottenham communities with nearly 10,000 members worldwide. It's owned by Wilsney, who you'll know, regular on this podcast, the Scarfey Spurs Talk Podcast, renowned Spurs content creator, also a proud part of my Tottenham team. We also now have another partnership in place. Inside his server, you'll find live match chat during every Spurs game, transfer news and rumours, loads of Spurs debates, banter, chat, you name it, plus gaming, FPL, and off-topic channels to keep things fun between the matches. Basically, your 24/7 virtual hub for Tottenham fans. So if you are Spurs, make sure you do get involved. I recently joined, so make sure you do as well. Third means quite a lot to me as well, because Dan Gaze's Support Service Limited. I'm a proud ambassador for them. And Dan Gaze's Support Service Limited provide experienced staff to support young people to fulfill their potential, develop their skills, and be active and positive members of their community. Key aims are to build direct relationships, be a positive and consistent role model, coach, and mentor young people to develop their skills and teach self-regulation. At Dan Gaze's Support Services, they have a wealth of experience in social, emotional, and mental health as tutors, teachers, senior leaders, and high-level TAs. Dan Gaze Support Services are also proud sponsors of Nick Freeman and former Tottenham footballer Harvey White. I'm also an ambassador for them. So if you'd like to discuss their services, please contact them at dgsltd@outlook.com. And last but not least, you've got In the 290, who's a community network space bringing together like-minded people to share feedback, advice, and workflows so everyone can improve and grow together in everyone, everything helping model. And that is, by the way, a Discord server is to do with football. Last but not least, I promise to get into the action. I'm very proud to say that the YouTube channel in particular is the 8th biggest Tottenham fan channel in September, which is absolutely crazy. It's a big increase from the month before, meaning September is our best month on record ever for a single month since the channel was created. So thank you all for your continued support. Some big names in there that we're ahead of and in and around of. So thank you very much. Let's do the fun stuff and talk Tottenham. So starting 11, if people missed it for the Bodo game, was Vicario, Porro, Danso, Van der Ven, Spence, that was the back line. A midfielder, Benton, Court, Sarr and Bergval. Then a front line of Johnson, Richarlison and Odebear. Substitutes, you get one more in the Champions League. We listed an extra goalkeeper we decided to. We've got Kinski, Austin, Odogi, Davis, Hardy, Paulinia, Gray, Lise, Simmons, Kudus and Scarlett. Ian, can I come to you firstly? What were your thoughts at the time? Do you share people's concerns like that attack, for example, wasn't good enough when people first saw the team come out?
Sorry, I don't know why I'm not hearing you. Sorry, I might have to log out and log in. Can you say that again?
Team, talk to me about the lineup.
Yeah, I heard you about the lineup, but you asked a specific question.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Yes, all right. Tell me about the lineup.
Yeah, no, well, let me just talk, and you can interrupt me if I'm getting this wrong. I'm not quite sure why I'm not hearing you clearly. Excuse me. I wasn't happy with the lineup. I wasn't happy with the lineup on Saturday night against Wolves, and I'm questioning what Thomas Frank is trying to do. Against Wolves, I don't think you need to play two holding midfield players. I think you want to be dominating the ball. I think you want players that can dominate the ball, pass the ball, move the ball, hold the ball. And I would never have played Paulinia and Bentancur against Wolves. If you want to rest, rotate them, I think that's absolutely fine. Give them 45 minutes each or whatever. But that game cried out for more creativity, more skill. Someone like a Sarr that was driving on and what have you. Archie Gray keeps showing that he's worth more minutes but doesn't get them. And in the end, we got a fortuitous draw against Wolves. The team on Tuesday, you have a situation where you've got a side, they're good at home, they're going to dominate the ball, and you don't play two holding midfield players. So you're automatically weakened, and we were overrun significantly in the first half. You leave Paulinia out of a game that I think was absolutely made for him, in terms of winning possession in the middle of the field, breaking up attacks. That's what he does. And then you rotate the forward line. You leave Kudus off in a game and on an artificial pitch where you get Turner play. I know when I was your age, you played on an artificial pitch. If someone went past you, you had no chance of turning. They're much better now. But with somebody like Kudus, you would absolutely expect him to be able to drive at players. Johnson, is proven to be weak. Johnson, Odebear, Richarlison, you've got no one to hold the ball up in a game where you're going to need an out ball. I don't want to be overcritical. I don't want to be overcritical of Frank, because people say, hang on a minute, wake up and smell the coffee. We're fourth in the league. We've got into the last 16 of the League Cup. We're in ninth place now with 4 points. It's hardly a disaster, but there's just a feeling we've been riding our luck too long, and that luck is going to run out. And I think the team selections and tactics have been at best questionable.
Interesting. We'll get on to that point. I want to know what you mean a little bit later. Thank you, Ian. Jack, can I come to you? You were nodding in agreement with parts of that, in particular when Ian mentioned that that front three, he was worried that they wouldn't hold the ball up. What were you kind of thinking when you saw that team? And if you want to zoom in on any in particular parts, such as the attack, please do.
I think Ian made a very good point about the hold up play. I think that's what, in a sense, is missing when we don't have Kudus in the team. It's unfortunate that it seems like we only really have one player at the minute in that front line that can do that, which is Mohamed Kudus. But I think when you're looking at Brennan Johnson, I think when someone mentioned a stat or something on Twitter, I think he had only like 3 attempted times to take on his man. And then Kudus, in the spell that he came on, did like something like 10 or 12 when he came onto the pitch. And also when it just came to carrying us up the pitch, Kudus was just so much more braver on the ball in trying to drag us up than the likes of Brennan Johnson was. I think Odebear as well, like it's something he's normally, I think, okay at, but this game I thought too, he was really lacking that bravery to either run in behind, hold up the ball, take on his man, do the essentials basically as a winger. Like I think we sometimes forget these are pretty much the main tasks of being a winger in almost any team. Your job is to hold up the ball, drag your team up the pitch, get a bit of real estate in the opposition half. And we had two wingers that were not brave enough, but in a sense also maybe not good enough to be able to do that against, no offense to Bodo Glimt, but a team in the Norwegian league in the Arctic Circle. Like, it just seems like it's not too much to ask of these players. And then Richarlison of recent, I think, has been pretty atrocious as well at holding up the ball. He just is a guy that is like a brick wall playing off of. It just bounces off of him, and he just doesn't seem to know how to do the basics right of either just laying it off with a first time pass or looking to try to spin past his man. He seems to either be trying to do too much or he's just pretty much incapable. So that's what I was nodding my head to about Ian. I think it's probably one of the biggest problems with Spurs right now. And I think, just lastly, I think it was even a problem to a degree under Ange Postecoglou's team as well, where I felt like we had a lot of guys that in the wing areas really lack that bravery to do some of the basics of the game that you thought for a period of time, at least when I was growing up watching it, that were pretty standard with most wingers. And now it's all sideways, backwards, going nowhere.
That's an interesting point. Jack, can I talk about one thing with you to do with that? And that's Kudus. You know, you talk about wingers at Tottenham not taking on their man enough. Do you think Kudus is that kind of different player that we've signed that does take on players? Is very dynamic. I know you have mentioned it there. And how important has Kudus been already to the team?
I think he's essential. I think if we were without him, I think it would be even more drab going forward, and it already kind of is at the minute. My worry is that teams will start to figure that out, and it will be pretty obvious that there's one guy who is capable of creating and holding up the ball and dragging us up the pitch. I think that was to a degree the same case with Sonny last season. I know Sonny was getting on, starting to show signs of age, but it became pretty obvious that Spurs looked to create down the left-hand side, and then Brennan Johnson was sort of there to tap things home on the right. But no team seemed to show any respect to Johnson when it came to his threat in terms of creating for others. And it seems like we have the same problem, just now flipped, where Kudus is on the right, is the only guy that can create. And then anybody that seems to be on the left side is also kind of incapable of creating. So I'm so glad that we have Kudus, but I feel like we've just maintained the same problem from last season and then just moved it over to the right-hand side.
It's an interesting point. A lot of people do say that, actually, so it's no surprise to hear it again tonight. Thank you, Jack. Connor, can I bring you in on the discussion of the lineup? What were you thinking at the time? Was there anything that surprised you? Of course, there was a little bit of rotation. Did you expect that?
I expected rotation because, I mean, last season we beat Bodo Glimt pretty comfortably, so you probably would have expected rotation because going into the game you think, oh, that's an easy game. But yeah, I was expecting to see a few different players. Obviously, we knew that Romero wasn't going to be there. We was told that he didn't travel. I think maybe a little bit too weak, the lineup. The only thing, obviously, going back to what Ian and Jack were talking about, I don't fully agree with the whole idea of Thomas Frank being at fault for some of these lines because at the end of the day, it's personnel. So you've got players like Richarlison, but who else? I mean, Solanke's not fit. You don't have a number 9 that can hold the ball up at the club. So I wouldn't say, oh, Thomas Frank needs to think about who he's picking when he's picking these lineups in terms of that. I mean, I wasn't shocked. I was expecting Palhinha not to play yesterday. I was happy that he wasn't in the starting lineup because I don't want to see him every single game. I love him, but at the moment he's proving to be a really, really important player. And going into the game, obviously, like I said, you think that you're going to beat Bodo Glimt, so you wouldn't then put Palhinha in the lineup because you think it's a chance to rest him because he's one of the main players that need a rest at the moment. Same as Kudus. But I do also agree with the fact that teams are obviously going to see the fact that Kudus is the only player that will actually win 1v1s and then start to try and drown him out, maybe stick an extra man on him, get tighter to him. We do need the same down the left and right, but at least for now we can be grateful that we do have a player that can win 1v1s and create chances because we didn't have that on the wing last season.
Very, very good point. Thank you, Connor. So let's get into the game itself. For people listening are unfamiliar and are new to the kind of podcast, don't know how we do it, we go through it chronologically. We're going to go through it from A to B. So we'll start and progress through the game. So if you're wondering why we're not talking about the result or the full-time whistle, that will come a little bit later. Jack, can I come back to you? Because 8th minute, Bergvall put what I thought was a beautiful ball to Richarlison, who's in the end one-on-one with the keeper. I mean, it just looked like Richarlison wasn't expecting that chance. Would you agree with that? Of course, in the end, it just went into the keeper's arms.
I think that's one of the most frustrating things with Richarlison right now. This is coming from someone who has defended him in the past. Like, there are plenty of times where I actually do like Richarlison, but just right now, I think he's just going through one of those bad spells where, like we brought up earlier, and Ian brought up, he can't hold up the ball, which already hurts the team. But then if you can't do that, you would then expect that he can sniff out chances, be a fox in the box, be what a striker's supposed to do, which is be in the right place at the right time, and then be able to bury and put away chances that are put on a plate for you. And just the idea that some people have been saying, like, oh, well, he wasn't expecting, the cross or something. It's like, I mean, a striker at all times should be expecting the ball to some way basically fall at their feet, right? It's just as baffling to me that he just wasn't somehow ready for it. And he's kind of done that on a couple of occasions, I thought, against Wolves, as well as some other sides where there were crosses put into the box, or there were sort of times when the ball was kind of bouncing in the penalty area and he's just a step behind, 2 steps behind it, and is just not sniffing out the opportunities when, like I said before, he's not contributing anything on the other sides of possession or with the team. So right now he's just proving to be really, I hate to put it harshly, but kind of useless. And he was kind of doing almost what Matisse Tell was doing against Doncaster Rovers, where Matisse Tell had opportunities that came his way and then was just whiffing at the chances. And it's just, at this level, you just can't be doing that. I think at Spurs, you're just going to get punished, and fans will get frustrated because the chances that come your way at Premier League level, you have to put them away. Most teams are so much more clinical than us, and it's become very frustrating to watch.
A very good point raised. Frank certainly installed that defensive foundation. It's, can we do more offensively? Thank you, Jack. Ian, Richarlison, about that chance, should he do better?
Yeah, I mean, every time you watch, any professional commentator, observer, ex-player talk about things like that, you talk about the centre forward has to anticipate that the ball's going to come. It might get deflected. You have to be totally aware. I mean, comments in the chat that are flashing up on the screen about Richarlison not being good enough. No, I don't think he is. But I think one part of the problem is I don't think he's a centre forward. And I think if he was playing left side of the front, rather than Audebert or whatever, I don't think I would have as many concerns about him as I do him as a centre forward. We Are Spurs TV commented, the failure to buy a left winger and a striker is really coming home to roost. And I mean, it's hard not to agree with that. Let's not forget as well, though, that he left Tell out of the European squad. I mean, granted, someone had to go, but in an area where we're not particularly strong, that was the decision that the manager made. And heavens above, if Richarlison got injured, which he's prone to do, who plays centre forward in the next European game? I mean, it's a serious issue. I mean, I do wonder, and this is where my optimism gets ahead of me, that the reason we haven't bought a centre forward is because Harry's coming back next summer, and I have to think that, because otherwise the decision not to bring in a centre forward looks even more stupid.
But they would say that they did with Moani. They would say that they brought in that striker.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him, but he's never fit.
No.
I mean, I actually forgot about Moani, and I'm not sure. I'm not hearing the best things about him, about his attitude and what have you, which is why he came on loan, and I get the impression he came on loan with a little bit of reluctance. And as I say, he does come with a lot of baggage. Yeah, you're actually right about that, and it's a sad state of affairs. I actually forgot we signed him, but. It'd be nice to actually see what he can do. But whether he's the one thing you get with Solanke is he will hold the ball up. I know people will say he's not good enough and he was expensive. But when you see the way he works and the way he tries to hold the ball and bring other people into play, and if he gets the service in the right places, he will get the goals. He never got it under Ange, and we haven't seen yet what he can do under Thomas Frank, because he hasn't played. He played 10 minutes or something.
That's a really good point. Really good point. Of course, people haven't seen it in the week. Solanke has confirmed, the club have confirmed too, he's undergone minor surgery. So hopefully he recovers well and we see him quickly after the international break. But again, apologies to crush your kind of Kane dream there. But you're absolutely right with Moani in terms of it's really concerning. 5 or 6 games he had the opportunity to play now. And we've seen him for what, 13, 14 minutes? So there's no wonder you've forgotten about him. He's hardly been on the pitch. And I think he had 1 or 2 touches. So, no surprise there. But I want to stick to this chance when we move on, Connor, because I'm going to defend Richarlison slightly here, just purely to play devil's advocate. He's got 3 goals and 1 assist so far this Premier League season, which is the best number among any Spurs player, for goals and assists combined, for just goals, whatever way you want to look at it, and across all competitions. So do you think people are a little bit too harsh on Richarlison? Of course, this chance in particular, I think you can agree as well, he should be doing better.
I don't think Richarlison's a bad player. I mean, the last few games he's not been great, but I mean, if you look at it because it depends what way you want to paint it, really, because he's actually joint second in the Premier League for most goals. I mean, obviously you got to throw some context into it. He's not been very good for the last few games, but no, he should be scoring these sort of chances. I mean, every striker misses 1 or 2 occasionally, but this season he has missed a few big chances. But yeah, I don't think I've never disliked Richarlison. I think his main problem's always been it's more like availability, and I've never seen him as someone that you would stick up front because you want him to hold the ball up anyway. I think he can sometimes, and he can bring others into play. But I'd rather have Solanke. I mean, the reason we bought Solanke was for him to be the starting striker. But no, I don't really have anything against Richarlison other than fitness usually. And we can get goals from other places. I mean, we've scored. I mean, Kudus, Johnson, Palhinha. I mean, we've got other players scoring in the Premier League at the moment, so it's not all on Richarlison, but he does need to play a little bit better for sure.
Thank you, Connor. And can I stick with you? 31st minute, Bentancur gave away a penalty in this game. I mean, what was Bentancur thinking?
I don't know. It's so silly. I was watching it around my friend's house, and him and my other friend, because I turned away, so I wasn't actually watching it for a second, and I've turned back and seen a replay of the tackle, and I thought, oh, what is he doing? My friends were claiming no penalty, which I don't understand because he's jumped in and he's in like a scissor motion, and just completely wiped their player out. It's definitely a penalty. I don't know what he was thinking, just desperation, as he wasn't playing very good up to that point.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Connor. Ian, on that penalty, I mean, it was a clear penalty, wasn't it? As frustrating as it was. I mean, could you even justify what Bentancur was trying to think?
It just makes me laugh. I mean, how biased us football fans can be. I mean, seriously, if you don't think that's a penalty, football really isn't your game. Yeah, it's a nailed-on penalty. And funny about Connor's comment. I have a theory, and it seems to work. If Bentancur plays well, Spurs play well, and he didn't play well on Tuesday night at all. Just wasn't at it at all. And it was an all-round poor performance. So when Bentancur's at his best, we tend to be playing a lot better. But yeah, it was a nailed-on penalty, and a top-class conversion, or what the Americans might call an extra point kick. Has the ball come down yet? By the way.
We're going to move on to that next.
Maybe Santa will bring it to you for Christmas, Harry.
Maybe. That's scary. It's coming around quick, isn't it, Christmas? But it's a whole different topic. Thank you, Ian. But that leads me on perfectly. 35th minute then. Casper Hall blazed over from the spot, and he did blaze it over, just like he did against Slavia Prague in Matchday 1 in the Champions League. Got Bodo, an incredible story, back in the Champions League. And, you've got to be taking these opportunities. They draw that game, they draw this game, and you think, not being funny, I know it's only a hypothetical and it's not as simple as this, but you score both, they win both games. So he'd be incredibly frustrated. But in sticking with you, I mean, awful penalty, isn't it? It's hardly even a question here, but what's that about?
I mean, you look at when you're teaching, coaching kids and what have you, and learning the game, the thank you, the game, the game yourself. You get your shoulders over the ball, your knee over the ball, and everything pointing down. And at the point of impact, everything's back. And if everything's pointing back, the ball goes up. And the ball went a long way up. It really was technically a dreadful penalty at an important stage of the game, because they scored twice. They missed 2 absolute sitters. We could have got a hammering. On a bad day, we'd have got an absolute tanking on Tuesday night.
Absolutely. Jack, did Vicario do well to put him off? We saw the mind games and distractions. And I just going to say something. My 8-year-old brother sat next to me and he went, I think he's going to miss. He doesn't look very confident, does he? And I was like, oh, I hope you're right. He did miss in game week 1. He said, no, I'm telling you, he's going to miss. I was like, well, we'll just wait and see. And he wouldn't be quiet. And without being nasty, we kept going on and on that he was going to miss. And he blazed it over. So some say that Vicario would evidently already put him off before he'd taken it.
No, maybe he was onto something, because David Harris, who I was watching the game with for the watch along, he also said the same thing. And David is normally a very cynical sort of guy, when watching these games, especially that first half, which was awful from Spurs. For some reason, Dave said, it looks like he's going to miss this. And I didn't really think much of it. I felt like he was going to bury it, especially with the momentum that they had. But I guess some people were reading the body language or what Vicario was doing. I'm not sure what, but yeah, credit to your brother there, and credit to Dave as well, who I was talking to during the game. Some people, I guess, saw it happening.
Oh yeah, big up to Dave, absolutely. Thank you for that, Jack. I mean, Connor, coming back to you. I mean, Bentancur's got to be the most relieved man in the stadium, and jumping into that tackle, probably should be staying on his feet. I mean, he's going to be like wiping sweat off his head, isn't he?
Absolutely. Doesn't deserve that new contract if he scores it. But no, I think sometimes, I don't know whether you guys think this as well, but because you don't like to imagine yourself in these kind of situations, because at the end of the day, you shouldn't. You're not a professional footballer, you're not a professional athlete. But I can't help when I watch certain players take penalties and just think you're doing it all wrong. And I'm not saying that to score, but you'd at least test the keeper. You'd at least make him dive or something. I mean, because that's what I said to my friends afterwards. I said, I'm not backing myself to score it, but I would at least get it on target. I'm not blazing that over the bar. I think that's insane. I don't understand how so many people manage to do that, unless like you slip or something like that.
I struggle to see how you wouldn't get it on target. I get you hitting the crossbar, you hit the post, you put somehow just past the post, but when you get it like that, I mean, what's happening there? Brilliant. You chip in, Ian?
Yeah, what I wanted to come in on is if you've been watching any of the women's football, particularly in the Euros, maybe Jack, that wouldn't be shown in America. And I found it interesting the number of, we talked about some of those penalties, and I can't remember the one was it the one in the semi-final, where after like 16 penalties, it was about 4-3 or something like that. There was more penalties missed than scored. But you look at the way the girls take them, and they don't have the power, so they tend to be just trying to aim for a particular part of the goal. The keeper can see where it's going to go and just dives and stops it. Whereas you see the men take the penalties. I mean, apart from the fact they can put an enormous amount more power into the shots, they also open and close off their bodies. And what the interesting thing was, I didn't see any of the girls opening and closing their bodies to try and send the keeper the wrong way, or to deceive, to deceive where the ball's going to go. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do if you blown it over the bar or hit it, 3 yards wide of the post. It's never going in. But it was just a thing about technically taking a penalty. I mean, I took a few when I played, and that's going back a long way away. And I just had a technique for taking them, and they all went in the same spot. And touch wood, I didn't miss any. Yeah.
Some players just do a better job. Some players just do a better job at disguising it, where they just send the keeper the wrong way. And then other players seem to just blast it Jamie Vardy style every single time. And for some it works, and then for others, it doesn't. But I think that's what it was. I think he was going for a Jamie Vardy just down the middle, blasting it, and absolutely got it wrong.
100%. I mean, I don't know. I just think after you missing, the game before in the Champions League, I'd just be a bit cautious about keeping it simple personally, and not going for too much power, focus on accuracy. But I think you make a good point nonetheless, Jack, as you do Ian as well. But half time, it was Bodo 0, Tottenham 0. XG then, which is expected goals, Bodo 1.54, Tottenham 0.67. You know me, it's not my favourite stat at all. What does matter is that scoreline, and the stat says that Bodo should be ahead, but they weren't. Connor, do you think we were lucky not to be behind? It did feel like we were on the back foot and kind of waiting for that half-time whistle.
Yeah, of course. I believe that, I mean, like, in terms of actually having the ball, it wasn't a big problem, but it was just the chances we were giving away. They were getting too many clear-cut chances. And playing against a team like Bodo Glimt, you don't think they should be. I mean, like Ian said, when a player like Bentancur isn't having a good game, we're not having a good game. So that's what I mean. The midfield is what wins you games, and it was the midfield. I don't think it was any a problem really. I think Jed Spence didn't really have a good game. Anyway, I'm sidetracking. We were definitely lucky not to be behind, but yeah, I don't know. It was just going into half time. You still think, oh, we'll find a way to win this game. It just doesn't seem like one of those games where you're going to lose it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, I agree with you in terms of how, no disrespect, but wasteful they were at times in the final third. And do you know what? Good performance from them. We'll get onto that later. I don't want to jump the gun with that or jump to conclusions, but very good from Bodo. But you just felt they just lacked that something in front of goal that maybe we do as well at the moment. But Jack, moving on to the action in the second half, 52nd minute, the first goal of the game went to Bodo Glimt, the home side, and it was a lovely strike. Firstly, wasn't it?
Yeah, that guy Petr Hauge, who I think is one of their own academy products that was a bit of one of those failed wonder kids, has come back to the club. But I think with any player like that, even if maybe they didn't reach the heights they wanted to, he definitely showed that he still has probably a higher technical ability and just all around just skill than a lot of the other Bodo Glimt players. I think they do play some really nice football, but I think especially in the Champions League, you do need somebody in the side who is a bit more of a maverick or a bit more of someone that has that just extra bit of skill in their game. And I think Hauge absolutely, I mean, you'll probably talk about the other goal, but he really did just, in my opinion, rinse Poro on both of the goals, and both really, really good finishes as well from the player. And it was coming really. You'd hope that in the second half, Spurs just gave themselves a bit of a restart, but it felt like more of the same was just kind of continuing on into the second half until Frank made the substitutions. Just something I would just quickly mention that was maybe a bit frustrating about the first half was that I have no problem with sitting deep. I think if it works, it works. There's plenty of times that you don't necessarily have to go toe to toe with the team. You can look to sort of absorb a bit of pressure, take advantage of the space in behind, just be very efficient with the counterattacks that come your way. But my issue was that it felt like Spurs looked to sit deep, but then when they did get the ball back, they seemed to have no idea what they were going to do with it. And that was the biggest frustration for me. And I think what was concerning is that Thomas Frank's teams probably have always been that way, like a team that looks to sit deep, invite the pressure, but then are devastating on the break. And we had no idea what we were doing when we won the ball back, which then just made life even harder. And in a way, just sort of spelled what was going to happen. If you don't show any sort of threat in the counter, you are just going to continue to invite more and more pressure. And like we all knew what was going to happen if Spurs didn't turn things around. And the goal was very much deserved for them.
Again, honestly, thank you, Jack, and you make some really good points. Appreciate you sharing that. Ian, I want to build on Jack's point. For this goal, do you think he's allowed too much space to dribble into the box and curl round Vicario?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, don't think their goals were better than our goals, if you like. But if you analyse football, most goals are preventable. Most goals come from somebody not doing part of the job they were supposed to do. It doesn't make it the beautiful game that all goals should be, wonderful things of beauty. Most goals you can attribute to somebody who could have done more to prevent it. And I mean, to be honest with you, it's a bit like a boxer, really. At some point, you keep taking punches and taking punches, and at some point, you're going to get one that knocks you down. And it was hardly a shock when they scored. It was hardly a shock. But yeah,
Mm.
I mean, we didn't do enough to prevent it. We didn't do enough to prevent the second, albeit they were both excellent goals. If they were,
Mm.
and in fact, I can't remember the name of the guy. Haji, is that how you pronounce it? Haga? I mean, I couldn't agree with Jack more about what he was saying, and it goes back to me about having an out ball. I don't mind us sitting deep either. I would have sat deep with two defensive midfield players. That's what the point I was making earlier. But when you win the ball, you've got to have an out ball. It's got to go. Got to go either to a centre forward that can hold it up and play in the little triangles, or it's got to go to one of the wingers who can then use it to take on the counter attack. Brentford were wonderful at that with Wemo and Weezer and what have you. We just don't have that. So again, I don't have any problem with it tactically. Sorry, can I just, you put up a comment from Jess there. Good evening, Jess. I hope you're still with us. Jess is going to be my special guest, very special guest on Diehards on Sunday night at 10 o'clock. So be nice to have another woman on the show. I don't have enough women on the show. And I don't have many opposition supporters on the show either. I did ask Ryan for after the Wolves game, but he said, I've never done a show in my life. I'm not doing it. So it's not for everybody. So, Jess, if you're there, I'm really looking forward to having you on win, lose or draw on Sunday night.
Lovely stuff. Let's hope we do win. The sticks as well. They the 6-0 and come on. We'll have to see, but no, it should be good. I'll be looking out for that.
Forest are getting beat again, by the way, just for people's interest
Again.
with Ange there.
Oh, ouch. Not good for Ange Postecoglou at the moment. I don't want to rub salts into the wound by making it any worse for him and dissecting his time at Forest. We'll save that for another day. Thank you, Ian. But Connor, I come to you. Firstly, I want to zoom in on Porro. We leave the second goal for a minute, but on this first goal, for people wondering, this is not going to be a Porro kind of batch and show or anything like that. I've got a lot of praise actually coming from him later, but for now, he was beat too easily, wasn't he? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I'll try not to go to the second goal too much if you want to leave it, but I feel like they come kind of hand in hand. I mean, if you go back a couple of weeks, we was looking at statistics of Porro's season so far, and I'm pretty sure he'd made, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he was one of the top defenders for tackles, or maybe top fullbacks for tackles and defensive actions in games. So a player's always going to have a bad game. And unfortunately, Porro had a bad game against Bodo Glimt. I do still think that he has improved massively in terms of his defensive actions. But yeah, very poor on Tuesday.
100%. Thank you, Connor. Can I stick with you? Couple of things. Firstly, did you think this goal was coming? And also, like against Wolves, we concede early on in the second half. Is this concerning for you? Are you worrying what's going on maybe at half time, that we come out and look somehow worse and concede?
No, I'm not very superstitious like that. I don't think it's a big deal. But yeah, a goal was definitely coming. We was definitely asking to concede at that point. We kept losing the ball and just giving them way too much space in midfield, and then they would just catch the defenders out on their way back, creating more space. Get that space. He cuts inside, just whips it straight past Vicario. It was bound to happen at some point, but credit to him, it was a really good finish.
Thank you. Jackie, are you concerned that this is twice in a row? I want to decide, look into this a bit further, that we have conceded, because of course it's always going to happen in football at some point. But half time, the whole point is to regroup the players and to improve on the first half. But it seems like, and don't get me wrong, I think if the half time whistle wasn't there, Spurs would have conceded anyway. But I just feel like we haven't improved necessarily coming out of the halftime team talk. Are you slightly concerned? It is only 2 games, it's important to say, because that other one we, for example, against Brighton, it wasn't the case at halftime. We're already, behind in that game.
You could probably say that perhaps the more the same kind of continued into the second half, which Frank needs to try to get a hold of. I think just the big issue with this game was, in most of the games under Thomas Frank, we have, in my opinion, looked very defensively solid and resolute. This one, I thought we were just getting carved open time and time again by Bodo Glimt, and the goal was bound to happen. Whereas the Wolves game, I wouldn't necessarily say that. other games, like even against Brighton, I actually thought the 2 goals that Brighton scored were entirely our own doing. Nothing really to credit Brighton, I felt like that much with. And then apart from the 2 goals that Brighton had, they didn't really threaten that much, to be honest. Felt like we were more on top of them than they were on us. So it's just, this game was maybe just concerning because I just thought defensively we were all over the shop. And then going forward, we seem to have no idea either, which is just a bad combo. You would like to potentially have both or just at least one. And I think with Frank, from the most part, we've been very defensively solid in most games, which gives you a fighting chance and allows you to stay in games. But, we've been pretty poor going forward in a lot of the games, which can be resolved, you hope, at some point. But this game was just twofold. We were bad going forward, and we were also, I think, all over the place defensively. They just had no problem cutting us open. If you're going to sit deep, usually you make it hard on them to sort of carve open good chances. Yes, they could have a lot of possession in your half, but if they're not doing very much with it, you can sort of live. But it felt like Bodo had no problem getting it into the wide areas, taking it past the fullbacks, and then just creating a bit of chaos from there, whereas that hasn't been the case in other games for whatever reason.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that. So progressing, 54th minute, Johnson, got the ball at the back of the net. It was disallowed. 2 minutes later by VAR due to alleged foul by Mickey van der Ven. In your eyes, should the goal stood? You're really honest earlier when you admitted it shouldn't have gone in our favour with this. What do you think?
It was a foul. Criticise. I saw. And I challenge anybody watching to have a look at the goal that Celtic had disallowed tonight. You seen it? It was an absolutely shocking decision. And you wonder what the point of VAR is if it's going to overturn correct decisions and turn them into wrong ones. But this was actually VAR working. It wasn't the fact that he grabbed his shirt. It was the fact that he grabbed his shirt and held on to it for maybe 2 seconds or something like that. And in my view, it was a foul. If it was at the other end, I would be screaming if it wasn't given. I've got no complaints about that decision at all. And that was VAR actually working properly. Pretty stupid by Van der Ven. He didn't need to hold his shirt. And if you do, you tend to get away with it if you just grab the shirt and let it go. If you hold on to it, you're going to be penalised. And he was penalised. So I've got no complaint about the decision at all.
Thank you, Ian, for that. Connor, do you agree with the decision made by VAR? It felt like maybe the referee was a little bit lazy at first and didn't want to get too involved in it.
No, I do agree with exactly what Ian just said, and I also agree it was definitely a foul. I was a little bit disappointed with Van der Ven, to be honest. I think he lost his head as well, and a night where he ended up being captain too. I don't think he really displayed what you'd want after he ended up getting that goal disallowed. He then went down the other end all frustrated and then chopped straight into one of their players and got a booking as well. So I think he was a little bit temperamental yesterday. Definitely a foul.
He was at times. Thank you, Connor. Jack, should Van der Ven be smarter in that situation? I like to dissect every moment and in the grand scheme of things, we didn't lose. It's not something you should look into too much, but I personally believe that he still could have got there without the shirt pulling because of the pace and physicality he has. So should he be a little bit more smart? And if he's going to hold, maybe not hold for so long onto the player's shirt?
I think nowadays it's being called as a foul. What I find a little bit frustrating is it doesn't seem to be, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to be judged fairly with every team. Like, I don't know how many times I've seen Arsenal get away with so many pulling of the shirts in the box and so many fouls from set pieces. Like, feels like Gabriel can get away with murder in the penalty area and somehow still get away with, a goal, no problem. Or plenty of other teams you watch that are pushing and shoving, grabbing shirts, getting all, messing with the goalkeeper, and then there's nothing called. This felt like maybe by the rule book, like especially with the way it's being judged now, maybe it was technically deemed a foul, but I've just seen so many other games with other teams where that isn't ruled a foul. Like even Atletico Madrid, are a team that get away with a lot of the dark arts and a lot of sort of the pushing and shoving and pulling. And for some reason, it just gets waved off. Whereas with Spurs, multiple times now this season from set pieces, we just keep getting called for fouls. Like, what was it in the West Ham game, right? Van de Ven and Romero get penalized for I don't even know what. It was more a foul from the West Ham player than it really was on us. And then, what was it, 2 or 3 minutes later, we see Van de Ven literally get dragged to the floor by Fernandez or whatever his name was for West Ham, and that wasn't given as a penalty. So I'm a bit all over the place with this, Harry. Maybe it was a foul, but I've seen Spurs be the recipients of much worse fouls in the penalty area and it not even be booked at all for a penalty or a foul at all.
I think you sum it up perfectly, to be honest with you. Everyone feels that way in terms of it probably wouldn't have been a few years ago. And it does feel like, it probably does if you're, it's important to know fans of every club probably feel some kind of injustice. I personally don't believe there's any bias or agenda. I just think it's really poor inconsistency. And in my opinion, referees come a little bit lazy with VAR. I think it's a great idea, but they kind of rely on it. Like with that, referees thinking, yeah, probably a foul, but let's see what VAR say. Because if I, disallowed the goal and there's no contact, they're very unlikely to overturn me. I just think they, almost a job's being done for them, in particular the referee's assistant linesman. But let's progress in the game. 58th minute, Connor's already mentioned it. Van de Ven was booked and he lashed out a little bit. And I was worried that he would end up actually getting sent off. So thank goodness, which we'll get onto in a minute, he himself was involved in the right kind of thing we want to be involved in games. And the next goal for Tottenham. But for now, 60th minute, Spurs made a double substitution. On come Mohamed Kudus and Xavi Simons, and off come Lucas Bergvall and Brennan Johnson. And the second goal for Bodo, which we have been talking about and hinting at, come in the 65th minute. So not long after, to be totally honest with you. It's very kind of swift. Bodo got that second goal to make it 2-0. Connor, I'll start with you. I don't like to say it, and you're absolutely right. I think Porro has, for me anyway, Porro's improved a lot defensively. But for this goal, he was turned inside out. Even more than he was the first.
Again, like I said, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's one game, and it was a very good goal. It was actually quite nice to watch as well. It was really some goals are just so satisfying, and the two they scored yesterday were very satisfying. It caught us out on the break, and he just chops it back with his trailing leg, and then just takes another touch and just bangs it in. It was such a nice goal. But yeah, Porro has to do better because you watch him back in a replay, and all he does is he just stands there. He just takes like a lunge. He doesn't really look like he's going. It just doesn't look like there's much effort there. Ultimately, we shouldn't have been caught on the break. That's what caused the goal. Porro's isolated, but he has to do better as well.
Thank you, Connor. Jack, can I come to you? Interesting point made by Connor in terms of Porro was isolated. Is that for you a system issue, or does Tottenham just need to get back in greater numbers? Because I don't know about you. There's times in this game on Tuesday night where I thought we actually got back really well and shut down that counter from Bodo, but this wasn't one of them.
Maybe in that part, in the second goal, it could have been the case that Porro was probably left in a vulnerable position, but I think this is more a Pedro Porro problem than it is a system problem. I think plenty of times he seems to show wingers in certain games. It's kind of off and on. Some games he does really good at getting tight to the winger, making it very difficult on them. But then in others, he shows them way too much respect and he allows them to sort of run at him full speed. And I think as a fullback, that's where you spell a bit of trouble. Like if you're sort of standing off them and then they are allowed to sort of take a few touches and start running at you with pace, it makes your job a lot harder on you. Whereas if you do try to get a little bit closer, they have to sort of try to create some bit of opening to then start running a bit more direct. And I think Pedro Porro there, he's just inviting Hauge, the winger, to basically take whatever direction he wants. He can either cut inside or he can take it down the outside and sort of whip. Like I agreed with Connor. I thought that was actually a gorgeous finish once again. But to me, I think that's more a Pedro Porro problem in terms of some of the basics of defending. And we said this under Ange, so I don't know if it's much of a Thomas Frank or an Ange problem. Maybe with Ange, he was exposed even more, but it always has felt like Pedro Porro tends to get isolated and tends to, for whatever reason, give his opposition winger way too much respect. Whereas with Jed Spence, Destiny Udogie, that doesn't seem to be the case. Like they seem to be able to get a lot closer and make things a bit harder on them.
I think we both want to come in there, don't we, Connor? I think it's a Brennan Johnson problem, and I don't know.
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
I was just about to say the same thing. I was about to say under Ange, he would get isolated because Brennan Johnson wouldn't track properly.
Bang on.
Literally just
I
about
agree
to
with
say
that.
the exact
I
same
agree
thing.
with
Go
and
on,
you might
Connor,
see
you
it a little
feel.
bit less now because you've got Kudus. And so far this season, if you watch carefully, you can see that Kudus actually comes back and gets his body in the way, is making tackles. I mean, Johnson can do it sometimes, but there was a lot of occasions where he didn't.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Yeah, I'm with Connor. We both wanted to make the same point. So, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I noticed when I the games I've watched is that there is a real understanding between Kudus and Porro that he just doesn't have with Brennan Johnson at all.
No, it's interesting. You both share the same point, you know, and people mentioned it in terms of Johnson. If I've been honest with you, I look at him and go, he gets goals and wins you games. But there's a very valid point in terms of tracking back. I think we mentioned earlier, didn't we, in terms of taking on players, how Kudus is different. Well, I think we're all in agreement. As much as I love Brennan Johnson, defended him an awful, awful lot, he doesn't take on his man. Certainly not enough anyway. But let's progress through the game. We're getting to more positive bits now. Go on, Ian.
No, just as a comment in the chat, and it was one I was going to make, but I didn't really get the opportunity. We are Spurs TV saying Spencer's fallen off a cliff since his England call-up. That's to me, that's absolutely 100% right. It's almost like it's got to his head in one way or the other.
Do you think it has?
His head just doesn't seem to have been right since he played for England. It's a really good point. I agree with that. There has been a drop-off in his performance, a scary drop-off in his performance since he played for England.
That's an interesting point. You know, not something I've really thought about, but they say, don't they, that kind of goal of the month, player of the month, that it can be a curse. Maybe the England call-up was a curse in this case. But positive stuff now. 67th minute, Spurs got the goal to pull it back to make it just 2-1. Bodo, they cut the deficit through Van der Ven. Jack, I mean, firstly, we've said a lot about Porro, negative, but what a beautiful cross this was by Porro. There's no two ways about it. This creates the goal.
No, I mean, I think that we'll score a lot of goals, it seems like, under Frank. What's probably the case is the midfielders and the defenders might be our best scorers in the team at the minute. You know, the forwards don't seem to be able to put away the chances, but our midfielders like Pop Matasar, Palhinha, and the likes of Mickey Van de Ven and some of the defenders are probably the most clinical players we have in front of goal. And we are every single time, you know, when it is a good ball, we look so dangerous from set pieces. Like, we do seem to just be able to get a good look almost every time. And that's what Pedro Porro's superpower is. He's debatably the most technically gifted player, you could say, and technically sound player in the team. He knows how to play out from the back, play out from under pressure, and he knows how to whip in good cross after good cross, whether it's open play or from set pieces. I'd even say, just to Pedro Porro's ability, I think feels like he's only kind of just getting started or only just getting warmed up. I feel like when we start to get to mid-season, I think we'll see him, you know, probably the more time he works with Frank, the more dangerous he'll look from some of these crossing situations, because we know how good he can be.
Okay, thank you very much, Jack. Certainly beautiful from Porro. Connor, Van der Ven, I'm going to flip what you kind of said. Do you think he's leading by example as captain on the night by getting that goal? Of course, he did lose his head a moment ago, but in the end, getting that goal, I mean, that's what captains do. They step up at a big moment, and it just felt like this was an important time to score.
Well, yeah, credit to him for scoring the goal. I still think he was a bit rash and let his temper get to him. But no, I mean, what more can you ask for a redemption to go and score a goal and bring your team back into the game? Can't really ask much more than that.
You can't. You literally can't. Ian, did you think this time was significantly important to score in terms of we had to get the next goal? There's no two ways about it, but it just felt like it come at a time that still allowed us time to get back into the game. It was very, very quickly. I think it was within 2 or 3 minutes, correct me if I'm wrong, after Bodo got their second. It just felt much needed before the crowd could kind of get up for it and really support Bodo over the line.
Yeah, how long after their goal was it?
Oh, I thought it was really immediately, but I'll have a look. I could be wrong. Yeah, 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, 120 seconds.
Because I remember turning to my partner, who's getting more than getting into a football, and saying, you know, there's an old adage in football about you're never more vulnerable than when you've just scored, and that was a classic case. They had to hold that lead for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They just had to hold what they had, and 2-0. Another one of those adages is the most deceptive lead in football. It's the most deceptive. 2-0, you're absolutely cruising. At 2-1, the lead's halved and you're under pressure. And it was absolutely critical we got the goal when we did. And Van de Ven, by the way, I thought looked like he loved being captain. I mean, he just absolutely looked like he was enjoying being the captain, the responsibility and the honour. I think he genuinely loves Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And it was a really, really important time to score. And suddenly it gives us hope. From you're watching this going 2-0, Bodo, God, this could have been the Champions League, the Europa League semi-final, and thankfully we got away with it, but or won well there in the end. But critical, absolutely critical time to get a goal and give us all hope.
Indeed. So we'll move on for now. 69th minute was a Spurs substitution on Comial Polinia for Pat Matessar. I mean, look at that. Some would say slightly more defensive move, but I think, in my opinion anyway, Polinia brought a control to the game. Connor, would that be fair? Yeah, Polinia coming on, putting his foot on the ball, and of course not setting the world alight. It's not his job to do, but it just brought that calmness and control that we were always, felt like we're going to get back in the game with him on the pitch.
Yeah, he really does add something to the team, and that's why he was rested, because of how important he is. Like, just look what he did. He stepped on the pitch, and the game changes in seconds. And just like, if he has the power to do that, and you go into a game like that game thinking you're going to win it, you don't end up playing him because you don't want to risk losing him. But yeah, no, he comes on and he just changes the game completely. And so far this season, that has been what he has done. He's changed games. Well, maybe not changed games coming on, but he's sort of made it let us control the game when he has been on the pitch.
It certainly has. That's a very good point. You're spot on. Thank you, Connor, for that. I agree with you anyway. 82nd minute, Spurs make more substitutions. They make this time a double substitution. On comes Archie Gray and Destiny Udogie. I'm going to break my own kind of rule here and jump the gun because I want to talk about Archie Gray in particular. And by the way, Benton Court and Spence were the players that made way. Jack, can I start with you? I don't want to get on to in terms of Archie Gray and what kind of his minutes look like for the weekend for Leeds. I'm going to save that for a bit. But on this game, my goodness, I thought he was excellent. To be honest with you, I'll go as far as saying he was the best player on the pitch. And he was on there for 8 minutes of normal time? You've got a little bit of additional time in the end. So how impressed were you with him? We'll get on to his contribution in a second, but I thought he was really good.
I think he's had 2 very good cameos off the bench in a row now. I thought he played well against Wolves, actually, in the few minutes that he had there. I think he showed a lot of endeavor. What's nice is when a player comes in off the bench, they're not wasting time playing sideways passes, looking to get into the game. Like, he was very brave immediately when he got onto the pitch, was making runs off of the ball, being an unselfish player by just sort of giving the opposition defenders, something to think about. And he just was sound and technical when he did have possession. And then I would say the same thing about him versus Wolves. So 2 very good cameos. And then against Doncaster Rovers, granted, it's only Doncaster, but, I thought he was one of the better players on the pitch that day as well. So something to take note of. I think he's had some really good performances of recent, but they've come in maybe a different position than what we would have thought he would be playing in. I think a lot of us think he would be playing as the deepest lying midfielder, as more of a number 6, a defensive midfielder, but he's, I think, come on and played more as a box-to-box type of midfielder, and he's done really well, actually. So credit to the kid.
Thank you, Jack. Connor, did you want to add anything? I saw your eyes light up when I mentioned Archie Gray. Do you think he was really good?
Yeah, I was going to say as well, I mean, we all know that Frank wanted him. He was so close to going to Brentford a couple of years ago before we signed him. So that he's going to get treated nicely under this manager. He's going to suit the way we play. I don't think that was so much the case under Ange. I mean, maybe benefit the doubt because of all the injuries, so he never really got much of an opportunity to play in the right position. But no, I also was thinking, one of the things that Jack said, when you think about Archie Gray, you think he's going to be playing deeper in midfield. But then what I've actually noticed, and I mean what a lot of people have noticed, he's so good at other aspects of the game as well. He's got so much to his game. He's so composed. Occasionally he might dribble around someone, and you just think, oh wow, I maybe wasn't expecting him to be so silky on the ball, or just like I remember there's been some games before where I've seen him put a cross in as well, and I'm thinking, oh wow, I wasn't expecting his delivery to be so good. He just seems like a very complete footballer, especially for such a young age as well. And I mean, one of my friends always raves on about him, saying maybe one day Archie go Ballon d'Or. I mean, I don't personally see that, but he loves him to bits, even when he was at Leeds. So I just really like him. I think he's a really good player, and in time, he probably will be one of our starting players. And I hope he is as well. Hopefully for England too.
It's good to hear. But I spoke to a Leeds fan this week, and he refers to him on more than one occasion as a future England captain. So I said that at the time, and I'm still saying it now. So that's really interesting to hear. But got a piece planned for Gray. We'll move on to Leeds eventually. But let's move on to the good stuff in the 89th minute. Spurs got that goal. They got the equaliser to make it 2-2. It was actually given in the end as an own goal. It was originally given as Richardson's goal. Ian, I think it's fair to say that Richarlison didn't know too much about this. I mean, it's a proper scrappy style.
No, but that's what he can do, is get into positions and make himself a nuisance. And that's what a centre forward does have to do, even if he doesn't get the final touch. Someone said on another show, and I think particularly after his goals against Burnley, that he's one of these, it's got to be first time with him. And it was a little bit the same with Werner, Timo Werner, that when Timo Werner has time to think about it, he just fell apart. Richarlison's a little bit the same. You give him too much time to think, and he's, he just gets caught in 2 and 3 and 4 minds. If he doesn't have time to think, like those goals against Burnley were just absolutely fabulous. He got in the way, and he made the defender make a mistake. That's what forwards. That's what you do. No, I've got no problem with that. I think on another day, given the quality of his performance, he would have been hooked, but he couldn't get hooked because there was no one else to bring in his place, and therein lies one of the weaknesses of the squad. But I want to put my bit in about Archie Gray. I hope that's okay. I know that's not what you asked, but I'm a fan too. And one of the things I absolutely deprecate is some of the hate that's directed towards him on social media. 40 million down the drain or whatever. Hang on, the boy's 19. Let's get a grip here. And everything I've seen about him, when you think the job he did last season at left back, right back, centre half, almost everywhere but where he's capable of playing. He did really well. I thought, he was excellent. The minutes he played against Doncaster, played well. Okay, it's Doncaster Rovers. He had a role against Wolves, and looked good there. When he came on, I know it was only 8 minutes plus stoppage time, so maybe just under a quarter of an hour. He looked good, was involved. It was involved in the creation of the goal, and I'd like to see him start in midfield. Again, we can talk tactics. Frank doesn't play 4-3-3 yet. He seems to be playing a very similar style to Ange, and I'm not 100% convinced that the squad is made for 4-3-3. Particularly with the quality of players that we've got. And in fact, if you were going to play Johnson up front, where he played alongside a forward against, like he did at Nottingham Forest, in a even a 4-4-2, but. I'd like to see Gray start in midfield, and I think if we played in a 4 in midfield, it would be, or even a 5, it would be to his advantage. I like Gray. I like Archie Gray a lot, and I think he's going to be a good player. But he needs to get minutes and probably playing in a sort of hybrid 6-8 role. That's where I think he's going to be at his best. But I think he can mature into a very, very good box-to-box midfield player, a very good one.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ian. Agree with that. Before we wrap up, with Bodo, there's a few things I want to go through. 97th minute, Porro was booked. Jack, are you impressed with the resilience shown again? 2-0 down away from home in Europe with just over 20 minutes to go. Do you take that draw in the circumstances to pull it back to 2-2?
I think it's a very lucky point, because you could argue that Bodo Glimt probably should have scored 3 or 4 goals in this game. And it's nice to know that the players' heads aren't dropping when they are kind of being outplayed and also are conceding first. So credit to the players, I think, for, coming back, a few times now already this season. I think that does show definitely some type of, mental fortitude or kind of strength and resilience. Just something to like bring up though, that I did think was just a little bit curious for me with how this game, I think, was just so poor from us, was that I believe like both games that we played against Bodo in the semifinal legs, I think we also had less possession than Bodo Glimt, but you felt like we had much more of an idea. When we did win the ball back, that we were very direct. We looked to get it up to Richarlison and to Solanke, and we just seemed to have more of an attacking plan when we did win the ball back. But in this game, we actually finished, I think, with more possession than we did in the semifinal legs. But I would say that we just seemed to have no idea what we were doing with the ball when we were going forward. So that's just, I think, the slight worry for me about this one was that you could argue that Ange, even though Ange is a totally different story and whatnot, but Ange was almost doing a better version of Frank ball, so to speak, than Frank was in this game. Ange played very defensive against Bodo Glimt, but it, I think, worked to aplomb. Whereas for some reason, this time under Frank away from home, it didn't work nearly as well.
Thank you, Jack.
But
Some
yeah,
good
we did
points
battle
there.
back a few times now, which is good to see.
It is certainly, yeah. It takes real, I think, resilience. So thank you, Connor. On the performance, because Jack highlights it, how did you think we honestly played? Are you concerned by the performance in this game?
I think it was a bad performance. Would I say I'm concerned? I'm not really concerned. I mean, from the start, you'd see it as a weaker lineup, and you know, you're not going to have an amazing season all throughout the season. Not every game is going to be brilliant, and it's only really been a couple of games so far this season that I'd actually say we haven't really played that good in. I also think you've got to look at. I mean, like I've said before, I'm not really much of a superstitious person when it comes to football, but there are some things that you can't ignore. So just look at Bodo Glimt's record. I mean, there's that whole story where people that go there don't usually get a win. It's usually quite rare that they lose at home, regardless of the team. I mean, you're going there also, it's not an atmosphere you're used to. I know we beat them in the semi-final, but sometimes I also think you need a scenario to get yourself hyped up for a game. And obviously last season, that was Europa League semi-final. That was a chance to go to a final, win something. I mean, hopefully your players aren't thinking like this, but you go there and it's a group stage game in the Champions League. It's maybe not the same level of fixture, and as well, the team wasn't as weak that day as it was. Sorry, the team wasn't as weak in the semi-final as it was against them the other day. So I think there's factors to look at it. Like there's other ways to view it. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm concerned at all. And also, one thing I wanted to point out was one thing I have been happy with this season is games where we haven't necessarily played so well or aren't going to get what we wanted. So Brighton, for example, we were losing, we pulled it back and we drew. Wolves, we were losing, we pulled it back and we drew. Bodo Glimt losing, pulled it back and we drew. A lot of these games under Ange, and I've seen other people say it as well, you would have lost. So we're actually salvaging points, and that's the difference in the two managers so far, is that we are actually getting back a point from a poor position. Obviously, we shouldn't put ourselves in that situation in the first place, but it is still good that we are salvaging. And I also did see that Thomas Frank was asked about that, and he actually made the point of saying, when you're losing games, just make sure you don't lose. I mean, even if you don't win, just make sure you don't lose. I think that's what he said. If you're not winning, then don't lose. So basically, essentially, make sure you get a draw, at the very least. That's the standard that we should be at. So, we should be getting points from games regardless, and every week is essentially the mentality, which I like.
Yeah, and I remember Antonio Conte using the exact same words. If you don't, I think it was Conte anyway. If you don't win a game, make sure you don't lose it. I think were his words. And the point is, coming away with something in that situation is a lot better because you could look back at it and a point could make the difference. That's good, the goal difference. So, very good point there, Connor, and some interesting stuff as well. But Boda's kind of home form that is really important to consider. So, thank you for that one. So, we talked about briefly the resilience shown by the team to come back. They're all in agreement. It's great to see, really refreshing, this team spirit. And it's not the first and third time in a row now we've gone behind and come back. But for me, it's really important tonight that we cover all sides. So, Ian, I'm going to flip the kind of coin, if you like, to the other side and say, is it a cause for concern that we keep going behind in the first place and seem to, even some would say, settle for a draw? Connor mentions that with Van der Ven. I personally think he's spot on, but some were really quick to criticise Van der Ven in saying that he was happy with the point. And some are saying that, we're kind of getting to these situations where we're excusing bad performances and just going, okay, we'll take the draw.
I think the important thing is, as Connor has alluded to, if you can pick up results when you're not playing well, that's what the good teams do. That's what the top teams do. We've been hopelessly inconsistent this season, but we've had a new coach, new players, some injuries as ever. So we played obviously brilliantly at Manchester City, brilliantly at West Ham, played very well against Burnley in the league, but there's been other performances that have not been quite so good. But apart from Bournemouth, who played very well against us, and unfortunately Frank didn't have any answers tactically that day. We've managed to find ways of staying in games and getting back in games. I mean, at the end of the day, after the tanking we took for an hour of that game, coming away with 2-2 was really good. They are a good side. I think is the comparison with the semi-final. I got the impression watching the semi-final, they didn't really think they were good enough to be there. That they suddenly thought, hang on a minute, Tottenham Europa League final. I'm not sure we're up for this. Whereas this was just a game for 3 points, and they were a very different proposition. In fact, they never looked like hurting us in the semi-final at all. Whereas on another day we could have come off, because there was the penalty, there was the one the other guy bloomed over the bar, then the 2 goals. We could easily have been 4 down, easily, and no one would have said, Spurs have been all over them and they've got 4 breakaways. They were by a distance for that first hour the better side, a much better side.
Thank you, firstly, but secondly, I want to come back for a little bit more, purely the sake of devil's advocate, nothing more, nothing less. The other side to that is, would you have taken a draw before kickoff? I know, of course, you would, as any fan, hopefully would in that situation, but would you have been happy with that before the game? Is the point people make, and we put ourselves in that sticky situation.
Having won there in April or May, whenever it was, I expected us to go there and win again. Particularly as the team was, I think all of the team that started the game were all involved in the squad in the semi-final. No, I expected us to go there and win again. What I was disappointed at is how hopelessly outplayed we were. That's what disappointed me. You'd have thought that, I know the coaching staff's changed, but they'd have seen enough films of the game and known what was to be expected. They'd know what Bodo Glimt are about, and what have you. And they do have a great record on that ground. That no one stops them scoring. I think we were the only team that stopped them scoring in I don't know how many games. So maybe it was to be expected they would improve upon their performance. But no, I expected us to have too much for them, and we didn't.
Appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much for that. Jack, would you say that overall it's okay, it's positive in terms of bad performance, but we take that in the end, sticky situation which we pulled ourselves out of?
I think I would have taken a point if we played a lot better, and then it's just sometimes football is a cruel game, and maybe it would have been nice if, let's say, we were the Bodo of this fixture where you felt like you were the better team, the other team just somehow, some way was able to claw back and get back into the game with some goals potentially against the run of play, you kind of would have felt like, you know what, that's just sometimes how the game goes. But the fact that we were so dramatically outplayed, knowing like what Ian said, that we did outplay them, I think in both legs in the semifinal, did wouldn't say give me a ton of concern, but it's just the frustrating bit. You know, I felt like we could have definitely played a lot better. I take the point, knowing how poor we played, but knowing that we can beat them and we had beaten them in the past, especially pretty recently for the most part. I was a little disappointed. I think the one player that probably we were missing for this game that maybe not sure if it would have been the huge difference maker, but when we were talking about the out ball, someone that can hold up the ball, I think Solanke did play in both legs in the semifinal, and he obviously was missing for this game, so maybe he would have been a big help.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having 3 strikers and only have 1 fit is not ideal, I would say. But Jack, can I stick with you? You know, Thomas Frank, as we've mentioned a couple of things, maybe slightly negative with him tonight. So again, to flip the coin to cover everything, do you think Frank deserves credit for his changes to help us salvage that point? Like Archie Gray's a prime example, who goes and gets that assist.
I think he made the substitutions relatively quick enough with Kudus and Xavi Simons. They absolutely had to come on. I think it was also maybe an admittance that he knew that Brennan Johnson, as well as, you know, some others, you know, were just not potentially the right picks for that game. So he very quickly took them off and brought on the others, and Archie Gray as well. I liked the idea that he did bring him on as well. So I think he did get the substitutions more or less right. But as we discussed before, the idea that he did go with a significantly weaker forward line for this game, leaving out Xavi Simons and Kudus, I think he had to, you know, I don't even think it's hindsight. Like, I think we all felt like he needed to have at least one of those players to start the game. And he, you know, had to bring them on to save it for us.
Thank you, Jack. And Ian, again, I'm going to twist it again. I want to make sure I cover all angles. Is it right to point out that we done the double over Bodø last year, which we've referenced under Ange last season? Therefore, fans like kind of expect us to like win under Frank. Do you like that kind of comparison? I personally don't, but I agree with you that we should be winning this game. I do agree.
I think what we've got to put into perspective is actually the 2 performances against Bodø under Ange were actually pretty decent, particularly the away game. We didn't play well. I mean, that's you know, there's no getting away from the fact that we were very, very poor on Tuesday night and got away with it. There was no question of us getting away with it in the semi-final. All right, Porro's goal was a bit of a fluke. No, a lot of a fluke. But the reality is we'd been by far the better side. And I know, I mean, I said this, I think, on a Die Hard show. At no point did I ever think in the semi-final they were going to hurt us. At no point was I ever thinking they're going to score here. Whereas on Tuesday night, every time they had the ball, I thought we were vulnerable. So it was a very, very different game. But of course, having beaten them twice, having, you know, particularly gone there and won with a lot to spare on that supposedly impenetrable ground, I did expect us to come away with more than a point. Although, as I say, you'd be daft if you didn't say, after what you saw, are you happy with a point? I'm over the moon with a point after the way we played. Over the moon with it.
Exactly. Context is so important. So thanks for that. I really do appreciate it. Colin, I'm going to be really brutal here, and you know, forgive me for it.
You want to move
And it
on
is
to
do
Leeds?
No, I'm not going to move on to Leeds. Actually, I'm going to move on to Leeds
Oh,
in a second. Actually, no, I'm not. It's to do with Porro. And I've come to you because you mentioned
okay.
Porro, and I'm going to apologise firstly because it is completely blunt and maybe goes against what you're saying. But did this game sum Porro up? Defensively vulnerable and weak, but key offensively to the team.
I don't think you base a player off one game, so I don't think that would be fair. I think it probably does back up the stereotype, because obviously what we saw was, yeah, exactly what you say. He's good offensively, quite efficient, and then defensively not very good. But you can't ignore everything that you've seen so far this season, which is slightly opposite. And then I'll go back to you, but there was one more thing I wanted to add to do with the previous 2 things that we've been talking about.
Go for it now.
Carry on.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay. So with the being happy with the point thing, I just want to say as well, did we not play them at home first in the yeah, so there's that as well. So they're already is it 3-0? 3-0 down by the time we'd gone over to Norway? Did we win 3-0 at home?
I think it was, yeah, was it 2 or 3? I can't
3-1,
remember if it was
right?
2 or 3. A 3-1, yeah, okay. Yeah,
So
that
we
sounds about
already
right.
had a lead
It
of
was
2 goals. We'd already scored 3 goals past them. Would you not then go back home and obviously I know they'd be rare and at home they don't usually lose at home. We've got a chance to do something massive here. So obviously they'll be thinking that, but at the same time, you're 2-0 down against a Premier League giant. Sorry, 2 goals down against Premier League giant. There's that as well. Whereas this is just, as we say, it's just a group stage game. There's no second leg. There was no first leg where we've gone a couple of goals up. So that's another thing to probably think about in that sense. And then also where people suggest that, oh, but you wouldn't be happy with a point going into the game. But that's just a hypothetical because that's not what happened. Because we went into the game expecting to win. Most people would expect to win. And then you get to a stage where you're not. So you'd rather have 1 point than 0 if you're looking at getting no points. So it just,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you've just got to take what you can in that situation.
That's very true. Thank you, Connor. I appreciate that you chipping in there. And I have got a question from the YouTube chat, and it got quite a few, but there's one I'm going to pick out in particular because it is a bit, I think, relevant to the discussions. It's a 2-point thing, and this will kind of end our Boda review. Jack, I'm going to give the first one to you. It's to do with Dan says we've got no solid defensive midfielder. They're shooting from everywhere. I'll tell you what, you can put it into one question. He says, question is for the panel, do you change the keeper? So there's 2 different bits he's looking at, but I suppose it all comes together in terms of being defensively open. So also to add in my own question to that, Jack, do you think we were defensively open against Bodo?
100%. I think Bentancur had a poor game. I really like Bentancur, but I thought he did not have a good game defensively and really in possession either. Palhinha, of course, is very good at just breaking up the play, being very brave and just putting in challenges that sometimes others wouldn't. And then he tends to win the majority of his challenges, which just relieves a bit of pressure off of you. But I just think it was more tactically why we were so defensively open than it really was maybe to do with the personnel. I just think the way we were set up and everything just invited a lot of pressure, and then we just couldn't get anywhere close to the ball. So it was just making it really, really hard on ourselves. And in terms of goalkeeper, I mean, I really like Vicario. I actually think he sometimes gets given a lot of criticism that maybe has been unjustified, because if you look at sort of his time under Ange, at least, there were so many games we could have lost by more, games we probably won that maybe we would have lost had it not been for some fantastic saves from Vicario. He can pull off world-class saves. It just feels like under Frank, though, we're not going to concede as many dangerous opportunities and dangerous shots that you're going to need Vicario to pull off world-class save after world-class save. We might need a goalkeeper that is a bit better at just claiming crosses, coming out of, sort of the 6-yard box to, defend a set piece. And also maybe the question mark with Vicario is sometimes his kicking, because we aren't playing out from the back, as much as we did under Ange. There's plenty of times where we just look to just pump it long, get it as far away from our own penalty area as possible. And Vicario doesn't really have that range to get it launched, so to speak, whereas Kinski does. Kinski knows how to sort of really drive it, far away from the danger area, and that can relieve a lot of pressure sometimes. And Vicario seems really just not good at, sometimes his clearances. He puts us under even more pressure with that. So maybe we have outgrown Vicario or something like that. I don't want to go that far, but just to put it out there that maybe Ange needed Vicario more than Thomas Frank did in terms of his skill set, because Vicario, maybe the one thing he's great at is just world-class saves, but I don't think we're going to be a team that's going to concede really dangerous chances on a regular basis as much. So we might just need a more sound type of keeper.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate that, and hope that satisfies you, Dan, with that answer. But I keep putting off the Leeds preview, but there are a couple of things that have been in the news this week with Tottenham. So they are firstly first professional contract for Luca Williams-Barnett, and also potential new deal for Bentancur. So we'll quickly whiz through this. Start with Luca Williams-Barnett, because today he officially signed his first professional contract, with that journey continuing for him with football and that route to the first team at Tottenham. Ian, can I come to you about this? I mean, it's fantastic news, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I hate the expression "wonder kid." It's so overused in football. But clearly, what this boy's doing, even now under 21 level as a 16-year-old, it promises a lot. Absolutely. Here's hoping that this is the start of a very, very long, prosperous career with Tottenham, and maybe we'll see him. Maybe we'll see him in some games before too long. I mean, if you were 2-1 down to Bodo, why wouldn't you bring somebody like that on, see if he can produce something, particularly when some of the more established players, aren't delivering.
100%. I think we can all agree he has a bright future. But on Bentancur, and Jack, I'm going to give you that question if you don't mind. It talks about potential new deal and even rumours about a new kind of role in this new look leadership team and leadership group under Thomas Frank, which I think will be revealed, you would think, in the next few days. A, do you think it's the right thing to sign up to a new deal? And B, do you think he's right for that potential leadership group if he is selected?
I think he has more experience than a lot of the other players in this team. We are still quite a young side, and this guy's played at the Uruguayan national team from a very young age, if not when he was like a teenager or something like that. He was one of the main midfielders for Uruguay, and he was, of course, brought through at Juventus, played in numerous Champions League games, high profile games in the Serie A. I think he's always played at a very high level, and so therefore has a lot of experience. So that's what I like about Bentancur. And in games last season, especially, the way that we tried to play, it required sometimes somebody who did have that really good first touch, that bit of composure on the ball. And that's what I like about Bentancur. I think he has a lot of classiness on his day. He's very classy in possession. But I would say, like, in recent games, he's under a lot of pressure, it looks like, from Spurs fans. They've not been satisfied with his performances, which I can understand. But I do feel like we sometimes, myself included, have a very short memory, because I think he was one of our best players in that Europa League run. He was someone that was absolutely crucial to that midfield and probably was the best in possession, I felt like, of any of the midfielders in our Europa League run. It's just maybe right now, for whatever reason, he's not impressing the fans as much. And I think he's also very dangerous from set pieces. So on the leadership front, absolutely, just because of the experience he has. And then in terms of the new contract, I think it's good to have someone around like Bentancur. I really rate him, but I would just say from the outside, it seems like a lot of people maybe wouldn't agree. Some people don't seem to like him as much.
I find it baffling personally, and you make a point really interesting, and it is honestly so interesting, that point about how important he was, and fans being quick to forget. No surprise, some fans unfortunately are fickle of all fan bases. But for me, I looked at Bentancur under Antonio Conte, and I think he was probably our joint most important player, along with Harry Kane, or second most important player just behind Harry Kane. He was that important. And I just looked at Bentancur, and he used to be that risk-taking midfielder with his passing, really press resistant, used to lead from the front in terms of that pressing, and it felt like he's more of a attacking-minded midfielder. Would you say he's lost his attacking output since he got injured under Conte? He was out for quite a few months, because he's come back since. He's been good, but seems more of a safe player. Or would you say that's maybe on Ange, who's his style is all about safe passing, control of the game? What do you reckon, Jack?
Yeah, I think he offers just, like I said, the fickle fan base, is the case. I'm absolutely one of them, so I'm not pointing any fingers. But I do think he offers just sometimes a bit of extra time on the ball that other players just don't. Like some other guys in the team, they can have a loose touch. They can maybe play someone else under pressure with a sideways pass or offloading that responsibility onto someone else. And I do feel like on his day, when he is playing well, Bentancur is that someone that just sort of oozes a bit of calm into the rest of the team and into the rest of the midfield with, sometimes his just ability on the ball. Just the way he can rotate and sort of move out of pressure when people try to sort of close him down. He's just able to do those pirouettes and those, just quick sort of body feints to sort of lose his player. I think he's just exceptionally pleasing to watch, at times, in possession. But like I say, maybe recent games, he hasn't been able to show that as much. And so that's why people are clamoring for someone like Archie Gray to maybe be given an opportunity. And a lot of people seem to think that Paulinho and Bentancur doesn't seem to work. I'm not sure if I would go that far yet. I think we've seen plenty of games where they have worked, with PSG, Man City. I think towards the end of the Burnley game, there have been games where Paulinho and Bentancur have really worked well together. But in recent games, a lot of fans, especially around social media and whatnot, seem to think that they aren't good enough together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some people group it together when we're like too conservative, too passive, and go, "Oh yeah, it must be because we have two defensive midfielders," rather than look at the whole team. They might have a point, but they need to go a little bit further than that and open their eyes a little bit for me, anyway. But let's move on to Leeds because we haven't talked about it yet. Me and 105 questions, so apologies. So Leeds, Ian, we'll start with you. How are you feeling ahead this game? It is fast approaching.
Yeah, won't be easy. I don't know there's ever been an easy game away at Leeds. If there's any, there was a couple of Leeds fans in the chat earlier. I don't know if they're still here. It's always been a bit of a cauldron, Ellen Road. We'll have to play well to get a result there. Probably have to play even better to win, but they're not a great force. I mean, we won there 4-1 the last time we played there. I think it was the last game of the season when they were relegated. Harry got a couple, and Lucas Moura scored. Can't remember who got the other one, but anyway, neither here nor there. It's a game we ought to be capable of winning. Again, I'm looking at what's Frank's tactics going to be. What's his lineup going to be? I'm with Jack. I don't see any reason why Paulinho and Bentancur can't play together. And I think in a really tough away game, if this was Liverpool, not Leeds, I'd be saying I want those two to start. I wouldn't have those two to start. I would want to start with Paulinho. And I'd like to see Gray and Bergvall play together. I think they've got the creativity, they've got the legs, they've got the energy, they've got the passing ability to get through them. If Leeds were a better side, they would be in the top half of the table. They're not. They're in the bottom half of the table. I don't remember exactly where they are. And we should have the ambition and have the ability to go there and win. That's what we really should be saying. If we're going to be challenging top 4, top 5, top 6, you go to places like Leeds and win.
You certainly do. Well, Leeds' top scorer is Sean Longstaff with a goal and assist. I think it tells you all need to know in terms of Leeds in front of goal and how they really need someone to, clinical finishing. It could be Calvert-Lewin, but a couple of insights in the game before we get too much into it. Leeds have scored 6 goals in the last 5 matches, so maybe prove me wrong there. Carl Darlow is ranked second in saves per match in the whole Premier League competition, which is really impressive, 3.7. Brendan Harrison for Leeds has created the most big chances for them with 3. Tottenham scored 9 goals in the last 5 matches, ranked first away from home this season. There we go. Tottenham Hotspur won the previous 4 matches as well against Leeds United. So, a referee, by the way, is Thomas Bramwell. It's TNT Sports, and like we said, it is at Ellen Road. But Connor, because it is at Ellen Road, does that make it a lot tougher? I just get the feeling that they're going to have a close to impeccable record there this season.
Yeah, Ellen Road's one of the best stadiums in the country. I think it's a really good stadium. A fortress for them. But no, the points I was going to make, are you happy for me to put a prediction in here, or do I need to leave that to the end?
Save your score to the end, but you can say how you think the game's going to go.
Okay, well, I do think it's going to be a bit tighter than people think. I do expect us to win. We should win after the little blip in form we've had with the 3 draws. Like I said, I think it'll be tight. I think they'll score. It'll be a low scoring game. I don't see any more than maybe 3 or 4 goals. 4? That's still not low. But still, I don't think it'll be any more than about 3 goals. Very tight. Other than that, all I say is just don't underestimate Leeds. I mean, from what I've watched so far this season, I actually don't think they've been too bad. I just do agree with what you're saying in the sense of they need that main outlet, main goal scorer. Like when they were in the Premier League before, they had players like Rafinha scoring all their goals. They had Rodrigo for a little while. I remember him on FPL. He had a little nice little run in my team. But yeah, now they've got Calvert-Lewin, and I'm to be honest, I'm not really that big a fan of. You're right. They do need a proper striker.
And Leeds fans saying he's playing well, but not quite getting the output yet. So thank you, Connor, for that. And again, speaking to Leeds fans, looking at their results, watching their games, it looks like they've been competitive in every game of the season except Arsenal. But even that, they say, in their opinion, it didn't feel like a 5-0 game. Jack, what have you made of a Leeds start to the season?
I think the most funny part about it is Daniel Farke is normally a manager that is very good in the Championship, but then once he gets promoted to the Premier League, he seems to, fall like a stone, really. And he was probably a bit guilty of maybe what Russell Martin and some of these guys are guilty of, which is like it's all about style of play. It's all about sort of the attacking football, but then no real recognition that the Premier League is just a whole different beast and can really punish you, especially if you have inferior players. But from what I can tell, I haven't watched a ton of Leeds, but the little snippets that I've gotten, they don't seem as open and as vulnerable as maybe previous Daniel Farke teams, were in the past. So that's all I would maybe say, about it is maybe they're defensively a bit more solid and, are more difficult to beat than previous sides of his. And Calvert-Lewin, I kind of agree. I think he's one of the most wasteful strikers, I think, in the Premier League, really. The amount of chances that guy wastes, I think, is actually quite entertaining to watch, if anything. So
Isn't it
hopefully
funny
he
what
doesn't punish us.
Hopefully not. No, that's the thing. But it's funny what injuries do. I remember Calvert-Lewin was up and firing for Everton when he's really young, and he got this injury, and he was out for like 8 months. He just come back, just wasn't the same, wasn't as quick, wasn't as strong. And it's funny. It's a real shame for players that just injury really hampers their career. Not quite the same. Not quite as I don't know. It's just hard to explain, really. Even like Kulusevski, I hope he's okay when he comes back. But even that short period he had when he was back to start with, it just wasn't the same. But it's a real shame. I'll come to you. I want to swiftly move on to predicted lineup. Talk me through 1 to 11. What you think Thomas Frank will go with on Saturday?
I think he'll go with Vicario. I don't think he'll go with Kinski. I presume Romero's going to be fit. I mean, let's assume that Romero's fit. Yeah, indeed. Otherwise, it will be Dan. So I think he'll go Poro Udogi. And the team I'm going with then is, well, I talked about the midfield. Obviously, Van der Ven plays. Midfield, I'm going with Polinia, Gray, and Bergval. We've got to bring Kudus back. Where else do we go? We're still short up front. We know we talked about this at the beginning of the show. We were let down. I wonder if it might be worth giving Tell another go. I think you'll have to play Richarlison, much as I don't want to. It's who we are. It's where we are. So that's what I would expect. Expect Johnson, Odegaard to be left out. I'm maybe going to go. Have I left anybody? No, Simmons. I forgot about Simmons. No, I'm going to go with Simmons, Richarlison, and Kudus.
Simmons on that left-hand side. You okay with that?
I don't like it. But I think it's a needs must at the moment.
Thank you very much. Connor, what's your predicted 11 that you think Thomas Frank will go with?
I don't know. So has nothing come out about Romero yet?
Nothing at the time of recording.
No. Okay. So for argument's sake, I'm going to go Danzo. Vicario, Danzo, Van der Ven. I think it'll be Doggy. And then on the right, we'll have Poro. And then I think it'll be a midfield of... I don't see Archie Gray playing, starting. I think it will be the same as usual, really. So I think it will be Bergval, Polinia, and who normally starts when that's the midfield? It'll be Sarr.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So then Sarr. I think it'll be Simmons, Richie, and Kudus.
Lovely stuff. Thank you. And Jack,
most of the times we've seen.
Yeah, exactly that. It's very similar. Thank you. And Jack, your predicted 11 before we move to score prediction.
Actually, the exact same as Connor's. I think Pop Matasar will replace Bentancur, and Xavi Simmons, like Ian mentioned, might be a needs must at left wing because all the rest of the options are not too inspiring at the minute.
I think you could suit him on the left, though. If Leeds play high and they're aggressive, it could be a game. I really look at this and think Simmons, it could go up one of either two ways. He finds it really physical, really tough, and he's just going to really, really struggle, or he's going to flourish and really start his Spurs career, get up and running. But let's start with score prediction in reverse order. Jack, can I start with you? Your score, and also you think it's going to score as well, individually.
I'll go for a 2-0 in this game, and I really want Kudus to score because I think he's just doing everything at the minute in the forward line. So I'm going to say Kudus scores, and I think Pop Matasar will continue to pop up with a goal and an assist. So I'll put him on the score sheet as well. I love the guy.
Lovely stuff. A win and a clean sheet, another away win. Absolutely, tick the
That'd be
box with
great.
me. Thank you. It would be great. 100%, cherry on top. Fantastic. Connor, score prediction and scorers from you, please.
I said it was tight, and to be honest, if anyone was paying attention, I probably kind of gave away my score because I said 3 goals
Yes.
tops, and I said it'd be tight. So 2-1 is what I was going to go for. If not 2-1, maybe we win 3-1, but we'll say about 2-1, 3-1. And then my individual goal scorers, I'm not going to give one for them because I don't know who's going to score for Leeds. Could be anyone. But
That's a
for
good point.
us, I'm the same. I hope Kudus is going to score. I think he deserves goals for the way he's been playing so far this season. He's literally been our best, if not one of our best players. I think maybe Richarlison can score, and then if it was to be 3-1, then yeah, it'll probably end up being a midfielder popping up with a goal like usual. Or if Romero does end up starting, then I can see a Romero goal. He often likes to score a goal occasionally, doesn't he?
He does. That'd be nice. Thank you very much for that, Connor. And Ian, to end, score prediction from you, please, and who you think's going to score in this game.
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, we're going to need to improve on Tuesday night's performance. But we have played well in the league away from home. But we are going to have to be good to get anything out of this game. But I'm going to go with a 2-1 win. It's always difficult to predict scorers, but let's go with Kudus. Let's go with Kudus because I think we would all love him to get the end product to his obviously high quality work. And let's go with a winner from Xavi Simons because I think that would give him the boost he needs as well.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. That wraps us up nicely for this week's podcast. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, like I said at the start, in terms of my YouTube channel, very, very, very proud to be up there in terms of one of the most viewed YouTube fan channels in September 2025. Often around the 12th, 13th place of the Tottenham fan channels. There are quite a few, by the way, registered. This is within a particular website, Punk Pub UK. They have about 42. And so to be 8th is fantastic with over 135,000 views across the YouTube channel in September. It's great. So thank you for support as always. Listen on the podcast platform. That's your audio. Drop us a follow and a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe. Always get involved. Let us know where you're listening from and where in the world too, what time, etc. And if you enjoyed the podcast, let's see and go through. You can find all these guests across social media. Connor, firstly with you, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people follow you?
Well, I can finally take the bucket out.
It looks good.
No, bloody hell, it's Bergval. Oh, Bergval in disguise.
You can find me. Well, not really anymore. I don't really use it much anymore. But the only place I'm found is on Twitter under Things Hotspur.
Lovely stuff. Thank you. Yeah, we got Bergval. That's why he's speaking good about Bergval. Do you not click in? No, thank you very much for coming on. Ian, talking of you, where can people find you and talk to people about the Spurs Diehards YouTube channel?
Yeah, well, I'm a Spurs Diehards. We go out on usually depends on your midweek games, but Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Sunday's the show I host, 10 p.m. We'll probably bring it forward to 9 p.m. in future, but it'll be 10 p.m. on this coming Saturday. Sunday night. You can also find me at Shaggy1712 on X on Twitter. Always follow my fellow Spurs supporters back. So that's where I am.
Lovely, thank you so much, Ian. And Jack, a massive thanks to you. What's going on with your channel, and let people know where they can follow you.
They can find me. Thanks for having me on, Harry. Absolute pleasure. I'll make sure to repost this and whatnot. But find me alongside a more Irish version of myself on the Irish Hotspur.
Lovely stuff. Thank you. And I saw you're right up there with the statistics as well for 2025 and also September. So keep up the great work, and thanks for your time. And thank you all. That wraps us up for this podcast. Hopefully next time you'll be hearing from me from a podcast point of view, it'll be a Tottenham win over Leeds. Massive come on, you Spurs.